I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. So with the new sequel remake thing, of course I have to talk about the trilogy. In fact, let me get these out. Because a lot of people don't even realize this is a trilogy. Mostly because it should not have been a trilogy, but we'll talk about that. But yeah, I want to talk about these movies, of course, because how could I not? You know, I'm not a big crazy horror fan that like some people might think just by my channel. I do really like horror, but I do think it is one of the most irritating genres at times, where it's a lot of it is just like silly movies that get kind of annoyingly over talked about. But if I had to pick kind of a franchise that I find really unique, it would be this franchise. Because this is a slasher franchise, but the way it plays out is totally different from any other slasher you've ever seen. And I actually really enjoy that about this first movie. Because essentially within this first movie, we are getting the story of these kids, teenagers. They're in the prime of their lives, and bam, they hit and kill somebody. So it's a hit and so basically it turns into a hit and run, because none of them want to get in trouble for manslaughter because they're drinking and driving at underage. And then later that comes back to haunt them. We see how it comes back to haunt them, and the slasher comes in, and there's all this lore with stuff. And that's what makes it really fun. I think it's more of, it's got a lot of psychological elements in there. I think, we're seeing certain characters, how they're dealing with this mental anguish of what they actually did. Other characters are just trying to move past it, things like that. And then the slasher element comes in, but it's also kind of a mystery because you don't know what their deal is, who they are. And I think that is them kind of like taking off from Scream. This came out in 1998. Scream was a few years before this and was really big. I think Scream 2 had come out by the time this movie came out. And yeah, and then you got to talk about Freddie Prinze Jr. So much fun in this movie. Sarah Michelle Gellar was fun in this movie as well. She's right at that time of Buffy and all that stuff. So it's just a really fun, entertaining movie that kind of throws a different mix on the slasher genre in such a unique way that is actually really entertaining. It's so much better than I think people give it credit for. I think there's people who grew up with this movie who really like it, but anybody else who talks about the movie is kind of or they just don't really talk about it that much. And I think a lot of that has to do with the second one, and then the third one just kind of overstaying their welcome. But I do think this first movie is a pretty solid movie, and we'll have to talk about part 2 and 3 in the coming weeks. But I did really enjoy this movie, and I don't know what is going on with my lighting in the background. Why is it flashing? I don't know, but whatever. Let me know your thoughts, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching.